Hello and welcome to another Frontend Engineering Explained in the darkness. It might be apt that it's like this, so I'm going to leave the lights like this. So you might have stumbled upon this little website in the last couple of weeks, just breaking news HTML. And if you read the whole thing, you might have read this one sentence and paused for a second. The sentence I'm talking about is here, where it talks about HTML lends crutches to your JS. So it says, did you know that when you slap an ID on your HTML element, HTML doesn't just sit there. It actually creates a variable in JavaScript for you. And I was like, say what? And my first thought was, they must be referring to shadow root. Because if you use declarative shadow DOM, then the HTML parser will automatically make a shadow root available to JavaScript. Then I thought, but maybe not. Maybe that's not. So I thought, let me literally try what they're suggesting here in a code pen. So I have a div here with an ID of container. So if what they say, if they mean what they say literally, then if I do this, console.log container, I should then get a reference to that container. So let's run it. Exactly. They literally meant when you slap an ID attribute on an HTML element, a variable is created inside JavaScript that matches the value of that ID attribute. So I was like, okay, but why? And down the rabbit hole I went. So this started way back in potentially 1997-ish. With our good old friend Internet Explorer. And why they added this is not entirely clear. If you know, let me know in the comments. I would love to know the actual story behind this. Some people have theorized that people got tired of typing document.getElement by ID and was like, let's just expose it. IDs are unique, right? So let's just expose it. But wait, there's more. So, actually, so you can access it like that, but I'm going to type 3 things here and then we're going to hit run again. Yeah, except for that last one, which is undefined, the one on document. Why did I use document? Well, because, like I said, there's more. Let me bring these hidden fellas up to come and play along with us. So, it turns out a couple of more things was added. So other than ID being slapped on an HTML element, giving you a reference variable inside your JavaScript that's also attached to window. You can either access it with window dot or just container using the implicit window. It went further and said, well, for a couple of elements such as object, embed, form, image, and iframe, we will also take the value of the name attribute and lift that up. Don't believe me? I'ma show you. So I'm going to type here contact, but I'll type it correctly. That's even better. Hero. So that's our image. And hello, which is our iframe. And let's run. Yeah. And the reason this guy is telling me this here in CodePen is if I open this, well, it's the entire window object of our iframe. That's why it's not being logged. But let's do this then. Because what then happened is some of these things are not like the other. Let me do the last one here as well, and let me just comment this bad boy out for a second, and let me pull this up. Hey, there we go, and let's run again. Oh, look at this. So our div is on window, our form is on window, our image is on window, and yes, our iframe is also on window. Yeah. And then Microsoft also decided to put some things on document. Whoa. Yeah. So other than ID, everything is also available on document. So implicitly of the window object directly using window, or from document, except if it's an ID, then it's not available. But don't use it. Don't use it. I know document.getElementById, document.querySelector, but don't use it, and here's why. So first things first, let's say, for example, you create a div and you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to use this div and I'm going to put like location information in there. And I'll just call it ID location because, you know, like I want to get some location info. Well, I want to get that. I don't want to type document or get element by ID. But, you know, let's just log our div then. Let me clear that guy and run. Because location already exists on window, and therefore you can't overwrite it. So it's going to shadow it, and bleep bloop, you have a bug. Exactly. So, reason number one to not use it. The second thing is, you may or may not remember when the only way we could define something, a variable in JavaScript, was, well, you could just do hello, and that would just implicitly go in the global object, or you could do var hello, and cool. But then somewhere else, you could say hello equals anything else, and everything would be fine. If I run this, we're not going to see any errors. Of course, you can't redeclare. You can't say var hello again somewhere else. You'll get an error. But you can totally overwrite it. And of course, you could do that with late. The other thing you don't get with var, of course, was our block scoping. That's what we get with latent const. But of course, I can do the same thing with these guys, right? So let's do console.log container, right? And then I'm going to say container equals hero, right? And then let's console.log container again. So let's run that. You weren't expecting an image. And let's say you wanted to set, you were expecting it the other way around, and maybe you were expecting an image, but now you got the div back and you try to set the source. Well, you're in a world of hurt. So another reason not to use it. The other reason is just be kind to yourself today, in the future, and everybody that might encounter your code. Because just imagine you have something in your code like this that says container.source equals https blah blah example.com/weird.jpg. I don't know if anything exists there, probably not. And then you have lots and lots of code, and then you have container.alt equals this is weird, And now somebody comes to the code and they're like, container. Oh, I wonder what this refers to. And they're scrolling and they're scrolling and they're, oh, container.source. Okay, it must be an image, but I don't see it anywhere where it's defined. What in the world is going on here? Because maybe you don't know about a little thing that eventually got standardized called named access on the window object. And this eventually happened. So this whole concept that I just explored eventually got standardized into HTML. That's why it still works today in browsers. And you can see down here, for example, it talks about this idea of the name attribute and iframe and And here it talks about embed form image object, where also the value of the name content attribute. And then here is ID on all HTML elements. I used it on the div because Figma, but you could use it on any HTML element and it would work. And there was even a time where Internet Explorer would incorrectly do this for name attributes on input elements, but only if they were outside of a form element. But then they fixed that and that stopped happening. But when this was standardized, Firefox 4, which came out in like 2010, there we go, July 6, 2010, which is like a year, a little bit more than a year after this, I joined Mozilla. So I just missed this release. But in Quirks mode. So Quirks mode was this idea that if you didn't specify a doc type, then it would throw it into Quirks mode, and then it would exhibit this. But if you were in standards mode, then it wouldn't exhibit this. Another reason you shouldn't use this is because it's not reliable when to use this. But then eventually in Firefox 14, they exhibited the same behavior irrespective of whether you were in Quirks mode or not. So there's even more reasons, and TJ Von Tol wrote a great post diving into all the details way back in 2012. So I'll link this up in the description as well. But don't use it. It does exist. If you see weird things like this, maybe go check in the HTML. Somebody might have taken advantage of putting that in scare quotes, literally in scare quotes, because somebody might have used it. Change it and maybe don't do that going forward. And to close this crazy fun bananas episode off, I want to show you something that maybe you know or don't know. So if you feel like, but let's say I want to get like the div and the form and the image and the iframe, they each have different classes. So now I have to go and do const blah equals document or query selector, this thing, I mean, it's kind of nice to just be able to refer to them, right? Well, something you may not know is when you use query selector all, you can actually select multiple different elements. And because it returns a node list, which is array-like, one of the things you can do without even having to do array.from to take it from a node list into an array is you can destructure it. So what you can, for example, do is you can do something like this. So we do document.query selector all, and now in here we're going to say .div. Well, that's not a dot. .div. Let me just see. .form, .image, .form, .image, and .iframe. I think .iframe, and blah 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 blah. Let me just see. Oops, I made a mistake over here. So yeah, and then in here we'll do div form image iframe frame, and of course these are just the variable names I'm using right now. There's nothing that forces you to use those names. And now if we just not do this so we don't get potential errors, we clear this guy. And so we have basically a single line here of JavaScript. So let's run this. Ba-da-da! There is everything. Yay! Very cool. So that's a way in which you got 4 different elements with 4 different class names We grabbed them all with a single line, one query selector all. We destructured our array into separate variables. We know where they're coming from. We know where they've been defined. It's clear, it's simple, it's easy, it's predictable today and 6 months from today. So fun little fact about the history of the web, but let's leave it in the past. Put a little note on our mind, move it all the way to the back, bring this stuff to the front, and let's do this stuff. Cool. I hope you found this interesting, slightly entertaining maybe even. And until the next one, don't do this. Do the better thing. Do the query selector. Do the get element by ID. Do the query selector all. And make the web fun, awesome, and accessible. Peace.